So my guest today is a woman who has a mission to help people with disabilities, specifically to help them find short-term rentals so they can travel with ease. She's the CEO of Becoming RentABLE, which finds creative ways to make short-term rentals accessible to everyone. Her mission is born out of her own personal journey. Since her diagnosis as a young child with limb girdle muscular dystrophy, Lorraine has been a full-time wheelchair user. She's also the mother of 2 children with muscular dystrophy. And when her family had trouble finding short-term accessible rentals for vacations, she decided to create a company. Lorraine, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here.
So one of my past guests said, and I think this is the perfect example, she said, look for the unsolved problems when you're thinking about what kind of a business you want to start. And honestly, I mean, I can't think of anything better than saying, wow, my family's dealt with this. I've dealt with this. Let's figure out a way to solve it. So talk to me a little bit, if you will. Let's go back to your background. When did you become a wheelchair user? And, you know, I'm sure that this is one of many problems that you found, you know, for wheelchair users in terms of accessibility. But talk a little bit about your past and how it kind of led you down this path.
Sure. I'm diagnosed at age 2. I just turned 62 last week. So having a disability has been a way of life for me. You know, I grew up with muscular dystrophy. I was mobile, have never climbed stairs, sat on a floor, got up off a floor by myself. And so I've gone through different stages of life using a walker for years. Then one of those little scooters, 3-wheel scooters that I could bring every child on my lap and scoot around the mall with. And then I, about 20 years ago, started using my electric wheelchair and you know, I say a lot of times that having a disability and having it part of your life, it's a way of life, is easier than a change in life. You know, those who have been able to walk or run and climb stairs, and then through an accident or illness or injury, they no longer have those abilities. I think it's a lot harder with that change of life. So for me, it has been, there's elements that are no fun, like being able to go to my neighbors for a cup of coffee or to a birthday party with my boys and hanging out with the rest of the moms, you know, not getting into or having a hard time finding a place that we can vacation. So there's aspects of it that are really no fun. But, you know, again, taking that information and knowledge and choosing to do something about it. And that's what I've done for my career.
So tell me how old your boys are. And,
oh my gosh.
When were they diagnosed, or were they diagnosed from birth?
They were diagnosed at 3 years old. Nathan was a little tripper. Both of them started walking around 18 months. You know, Nathan was my child who was really happy inside my belly. And at 42 weeks, I'm like, get this child out of me. And, you know, he was one that we vacuumed out. I called him my Hoover child. And then Alexander was my fame in life that I felt like a true woman, natural birth. That child wanted out early and he was going to come out. And so he was a month early and 5 hours to deliver, no time for drugs or anything. And it's like, well, I'm a woman, you know, I'm like, here I am.
I've done it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes. And now, oh my gosh, my babies, one is 26, a recent graduate of NC State in their art school. And Nathan, we pray, will be a graduate. He's 28 and finishing up his PhD in electrical engineering, hopefully this May.
So very smart and talented young men. So when did you start kind of thinking about this specific issue? Because again, I'm sure there have been many issues over the years where you thought, well, this should be more accessible. But you're really talking about going on vacation, right? Renting an Airbnb, which so many of us do and don't even think about it. But
Right.
You have to think about it.
Oh my gosh, we think about everything going to the grocery store. I used to think about the wind. Nope, I can't go to that meeting. And I would always say the wind monster's going to get me, because when I use my walker and I wear long dresses, I was like a kite. That wind would come. So, even the outdoor elements is something I'd think about. But, I didn't think about starting this company. Disability has been my career. I own a communications firm for 28 years with the focus on healthcare and disability, education. When the boys were in school, I was that PTA mom that would bring education into the classroom, elementary, middle school, high school. But it was I think it was when we went to Disney. We looked at all traditional places. I didn't do a lot of research when we went to Disney when the boys were young. And my aha moment came when we were at one of the vacation rentals and we were catching a bus to go to the big park, and they only had 2 tear downs or tie downs for wheelchairs. But there's 3 of us that need tie downs. And I'm like, wait a minute, we have to divide and conquer going to Disney? So my husband would take one child, I would take another, and this is like the most magical place on earth. And it's like, wait a minute, this is, I'm really uncomfortable, that we have to meet up in this big area. I'm traveling with one. And so I'm like, this is crazy. And it was really hard because, Robert, I would say, Robert, can you lift me off the toilet? Dad, can you help me here? And then I would, back and forth, and it was hard. And then the boys graduated high school and we didn't travel hardly at all, because I thought our family's special. We're always bringing a lot of events in our world it's all about me. And it's like, okay, we're 3, a threesome. Imagine a van, 3 scooters, 4 people, your snacks, your luggage. Wow, a lot. So being in Raleigh, North Carolina, and looking at what can we do, I went to Carolina Beach and we built a house. And it's fabulous. And I built it with the idea of our family in mind, looking at, again, me, designing it with somebody with the least amount of abilities. So what does that look like? And then it's like, wait a minute, we got to pay for this house. So let's bring in some income. And so this was in 2014. And so we created a short-term accessible rental. And so I love the beach. I love being there, and I'm there as much as I possibly can. So I was there for our renters, and I love my renters. I have the best renters in the whole wide world. And the reason they're the best is because they appreciate the 0 threshold entry, the elevator, the wide doors, the roll-in shower, the roll-under sink, the microwave, all of these features. And we've had over 400 families stay at our place. And I'm sitting out in the driveway, hanging out with my neighbors, and, thinking about all the experiences. And a boy comes in, this van shows up. There's 6 people in the van. One boy is a 16-year-old. He's in a wheelchair, and he says, "Excuse me, ma'am, are you the owner of this house?" And I said, "I am." And he goes, "Well, I want to thank you. This is the first time that I'll ever be able to take a shower that I've been on vacation." And I'm like, wow. I said, "Well, I hope you have a great shower." And then 2 other girls got out with Down syndrome. Another girl came out who's blind. And the 6th child came out who is autistic. And so the next day I go knock on the door, and they were like, "Hey, Miss Lorraine, come on in." And it's like, well, I want to see how Gideon liked to shower. And he's like, I say, "So, how was the shower?" He's like, "Fine." I'm like, "Dude, what do you mean fine?" He goes, "Yeah, it was fine. But guess what?" I'm going, "What?" He goes, "I can pop popcorn all by myself." And I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, the popcorn machine's right here." Or the microwave. For him, it was all about the popcorn. And I said, "So that's your favorite thing?" He goes, "No." And it's like, "It's not your favorite thing?" He goes, "No." He goes, "I can reach the thermostat." And I'm like, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, Mom really likes it cold and I don't. So I don't have to fight with her anymore. I can go change it by myself." And I was like, "Okay, that's your favorite thing."
It's like all these little things that.
But here's the best part. He said his favorite thing, right, was being independent. And that was my aha moment, because he could do things that we don't think about. Right. And that's when I knew, you know what, we've got to do something about this.
And I mean, it was even stuff that you weren't necessarily thinking about as somebody who is in a wheelchair, because the abilities are different for everyone, right? And you talked about the different kids coming out of that van. They all have different needs. And so you started thinking about, okay, how can we do this on a wider scale, right?
Absolutely. I think about, again, the stories about how difficult it is to find an accessible short-term rental. So we know that that's the problem. So now we look at how do we create that solution? And that's where our company's turning 3 years old. And we spent our first year and a half just looking into that problem and what is the solution. And we did discover that it isn't that checklist. It isn't, you have these 10 things and voila, you're accessible. Like what you said, my needs are different than my boys' needs. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to create this platform, a single place that you could go and look for accessible short-term rentals that met your need. So it's about choices. So what do you do to create choices? We create filters. So most platforms may have elevator or wheelchair accessible. So we have very specific filters. You need a 32-inch door or a 36-inch door. You need a step-in shower, a roll-in shower. So you can choose. I think the second thing, based on this particular family, was the understanding of looking at accessibility beyond the wheelchair. Looking at accessibility in the area of cognitive disabilities, our autism, our dementia, our mental health, our vision, our hearing, and our aging. And so when we went to look at solving the problem, we really are looking at the scope of accessibility and where we are in life and where our needs are at that time.
And I mean, I'm looking at the numbers here. You have more than 1,000 accessible properties in every state, 685 cities. So how do you get the buy-in? In other words, how do you get these property owners to go, you know what, I am going to move that thermostat down. I am going to widen that door. Maybe they didn't originally have a property that had all these things. And then they started thinking about, well, this is a niche. This is an area of travel that I could really, make my property accessible. So is it hard to find people who are willing to do this, who are doing this?
A little bit of both. I would say yes, because it's new. The idea of when you have a accessible property for somebody with mobility issues, the first thing that comes to mind is the expense. It's going to be expensive to tear down walls. It's going to be expensive to put in an elevator. It's going to be expensive to do these things, and it can be. But it also doesn't have to be. It can be adding a step stool in your bathroom so somebody of short stature can reach the faucet to brush their teeth. It can be adding a secondary microwave to the counter so that, again, people using a walker or a wheelchair can access it. So there are creative ways to create that accessibility, and also to include the images in your description, putting in the words in your description and images in your photo album, and people don't think about that. Oh, that's an accessible component of my property. Well, I have that. So a lot of it is education. The other element that is, I'm sorry about my dings here. Okay. The other element is looking at beyond wheelchair. And we look at our cognitive disability, and we look at, that's about blackout curtains. It's about using odor-free chemicals. And so again, as we look at different areas of certification, we look at cost differences. And the main fact is, in the United States, there's 1.5 million short-term rental properties. But of all of that 1.5 million, less than 0.1% is accessible. So while we have 1,000, that's great. There's only 1,500 that are labeled as accessible in the marketplace. If you amortize that, that's a few properties per state. So there's a huge need, and our senior population in America is growing, and by 2030, 6 years from now, we will have more seniors than new births in America. So as an industry who's ready to spend money, who wants to travel, are we ready for that? And we're not.
That makes sense. Lorraine, this is a podcast about women and transformation, personal and professional. It sounds like you are no stranger to transformation. You obviously have transformed yourself many times over. But I always find it fascinating when somebody starts a business later in life. I'm doing the math, late 50s, right?
Oh, I'm 62.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you started it, and
Oh, yeah.
you could have just said, you know what? I've done my piece. I've raised my kids. But you said, no, I see a problem and I want to fix it. I mean, how did you make that decision of, okay, here we go, going to start a business at this point? I mean, it's risky, it's a little scary, it's a lot of work. How did you make that decision?
I really believe it's my purposeful life. And all of my experiences have culminated into the work that I'm doing right now. I also believe that God has led me to where I am. I didn't ever, and I don't think of it as risky at all. I started my business with a team. I knew I didn't want to work by myself. I knew I had no money. But you know what? We based our efforts on volunteerism. And we still have a group of volunteers that are driving our company. I am happy to say we now have contractors, and we're moving forward with contracts and being a profitable, sustainable business. That is our goal. But our ultimate goal that reflects everything we do is stemmed on creating a global change in how we look at and define accessibility. So everything is based on that mission. But it's interesting that you ask or say that question, because I've never thought of it as risky. I thought of it as important for my children, important for my friends, my neighbors, to create, we hear a lot about living your best life. Well, are we given a chance to live our best life? And I think that through the work we're doing at Becoming RentABLE, that is what we hope, that we can, contribute to living your best life.
A lot of women in midlife feel a little bit stuck. They're not sure what their purpose is. They're not sure what's next. They might even feel irrelevant or unseen by, the community. Sometimes that's cultural. But it's hard to make a change. It's hard to take a leap and do something like you're doing. What kind of advice would you give to other women who are looking for that purpose, who are trying to figure it out?
For me, it was following your heart. What drives you? For me, I remember sitting in the driveway at Carolina Beach. My feet are up. The sun is, just beaming down. And I think about, I'm getting ready to turn 60. You were mad, right on it, spot on when I was 59. So January 31st is my birthday. It's December. I'm at the beach. And it's like, I knew I wanted to do one more thing. And I thought about what brings me joy, what brings me happiness, what I really get the giggles about. And it was my renters, hearing their stories, being a part of that change in their life, seeing those life experiences, seeing those memories that were created. And that was all because of this accessible short-term rental. And that was, Gideon and his family made a big impact on me. As a number of renters, we had a family from Canada. When I first opened our property for a short-term rental, they drove 2.5 days to our property, 2.5 days. And I'm like, this is crazy. Why did you drive 2.5 days? That's 5 days round trip.
Right.
And they said, Lorraine, there's nothing else out there. And it's like, oh, there's got to be more out there. I mean, you're talking Canada all the way to North Carolina. They said, no.
Right.
And I'm going, wow. And again, story after story. So I encourage people to think about that joy that brings them. And I really do promise, when it comes from the heart and it's meant to be, things happen. And not to be afraid and not to let things like money get in the way. That's one of the things I'm most proud about our company. We did not put money first. We put our mission first. We brought people together who understood what we are doing. We all are people with disability in our life. We're moms and dads, we're aunts and uncles, we're young college graduates. We're in South Africa. We have people from Oregon and Texas and Arkansas that have come together who believe in what we're doing to create this change. And I see so many small businesses that take off and I'm so like, I love what they're doing. And maybe a year later, 2 years later, and I go, oh man, they're not around. And, I just want to encourage people that they're, and for me, I see a lot of it going back to revenue and letting that stop you to really open. And again, I'm a think outside your box kind of girl. And so
Clearly.
I am. And so I just encourage people to think about that.
Anything you haven't done that you still want to do?
Gosh, I had cake for breakfast on my 62nd birthday this year. And that was like really, really fun. Yesterday in a meeting, my family's from Greece, and I was invited to speak in Athens, and I said no. And part of me says, I want to get a big burly team of people who could hoist me wherever I want to go, and that I could meet family from Greece or my husband's family from Italy and be more a part of what it's like to experience these things. But
Sure.
I'm pretty happy in my hobbit hole, doing what I need to do. I'm thankful that there's Zoom and a way to communicate and reach out to others to share our story. And I'm a pretty happy girl. My son just moved into his first condo that took 4 years to build because it was based on his needs. And the architect struggled with adapting to what he needs. I would say if there's anything, it's providing more education to architects and realtors and the importance of creating designs that meet the needs of all of our stages in life. So it tends to be more about my business than personal. I really love what we're doing. I really love and excited about what this means. We're building an ambassador team, and we just got our 2 first college students. And I really want to get an ambassador from Duke and one from Carolina and one from State because I love the spirit. Oh my gosh.
Teams, right.
Yes, I love the spirit of our sports and ACC immediately here in North Carolina. And I want to bring that same spirit and excitement about the work that we're doing and how we go about it. And that's the kind of stuff that my bucket list isn't full yet, of being able to reach, these different audiences to help create their dreams.
Lorraine, how can people follow you and understand what you're doing and learn more about it?
Thank you for asking. Well, going to becomingrentable.com, and it is becoming rent, RENTABLE.com. We're on Instagram, we're in Facebook, we're on LinkedIn. And yes, please come and visit and see these beautiful properties. We created a little yellow house in Arkansas that's a model property. So if you want to know what does an accessible short-term rental look like for vision or hearing or mobility, check us out. If you're interested in building an accessible short-term rental, check us out. We have a lot of education material. Get your property certified. Come to our website. Like us on LinkedIn and on Facebook. I didn't realize how important the social media stuff is.
It is.
Oh my golly gracious. And thank you for having me here, because this is the way that we can get our story heard, and how we can make a difference is by folks listening to your podcast and then being on another podcast or hearing our story in a TV interview. We're very focused on growing naturally. And just by not osmosis, but by things like this. So, and having people visit us on our website is important.
Well, Lorraine, it has been delightful to talk to you. You have boundless energy, and I have no doubt that you will continue to add more and more properties to your website, and help families like the one you spoke about be able to do what many Americans do all the time without even thinking of it. Right. And that is just be able to go on vacation and enjoy time with your family. So thank you so much, Lorraine. It's been awesome.
Thank you.